Hello and welcome to Confetti Industry Week 2022. Welcome to your session with Sumo Digital, who are going to do a talk from their recruitment team. Please use the Q&A function to ask questions, and we'll get to the end of the session and we'll be able to answer those questions for you, hopefully. But use it throughout the session because there might be questions that are relevant to a particular bit in the session, and the guys from Sumo can answer the question there and then. I hope you enjoy this session today, and a massive thank you to Sumo Digital for taking part in Industry Week and taking time out of their busy schedule to join us today. It's our 16th Industry Week, and it's the first one that we're doing sort of as a hybrid event like this with streamed events and in-person events. Don't forget you can still book onto oncoming events by going to IW22.ac.uk. Make sure you sign up using your Confetti or NTU email address. You can also check out a lot of last year's talks and previous years before that in the on-demand section of the website. So there's some really great content on there for you to check out. As part of Industry Week, we're running a competition where you can win some cool prizes. All you've got to do is tag Confetti on Twitter or Instagram using the hashtag IW22 and share your experiences throughout the week. And you can win an Amazon voucher, I believe, as a student. Finally, if you're in your final year of an undergraduate course, which some of you will be because this is a recruitment talk at the end of the day, it's worth noting that the NTU employability team are offering extra careers coaching appointments next week to help you get ready for your next steps. Look on the employability learning room for more information on that. And linking in nicely to employability, let's hear from the Sumo Digital recruitment team. Welcome to Industry Week.
Thanks, Dan. Cool. Hopefully everyone can see the presentation. So Kieran couldn't join today, unfortunately. So you've got myself and Craig, who are going to kind of talk you through a bit about Sumo, who we are, and some tips as well, just for yourselves, kind of taking steps into the industry. So I'm Jack Mills. I'm the Group Talent Acquisition Lead for Sumo. I manage the recruitment function for 8 of our 13 development and art studios in the UK and abroad. So whether or not you know them, oh, someone isn't seeing the presentation. Cool. Let me just check that now. I will reshare my screen to see if you guys can see this. Can you see it now?
Yeah, I've got it here.
Perfect. Awesome. Everyone can see it. Great. So Sumo was founded in 2003 by 4 people with 2 core values, and those were family and security. So our objective as a business was as clear then in 2003 as it is now, which is that we want to create a secure place of work within the games industry that is able to deliver fantastic experiences for our customers and for our players. The founders have been through a number of acquisitions and had been forced to make teams redundant due to projects changing and priorities changing. And this experience had a very significant impact on how they wanted to manage Sumo as a studio and as a group of studios within the games industry. Our industry as a whole, rightly or wrongly, has typically been seen as a place of insecure work and insecure opportunities. And that's really just not us as a business. And we want to change that for the industry as a whole. So our group is somewhere we feel belonging to. It's very much free of ego, it's free of prejudice and politics. And I like to think we're all very glued together by a relentless passion to make games that we're all proud of. We typically manage our risks as a business so that we can grow sustainably. We want to provide, as I mentioned earlier, security to our people and really deliver an amazing experience for the players who trust us and spend their money with us and the co-partners that we have. We're very, very proud of who we are and what we do and what we offer. And I like to think, again, we trust our teams implicitly through the collaboration and the fact that we all develop together as a group. So as I mentioned, we started out in 2003 in Sheffield. Initially, we took on work for hire projects from publishers while we were building out our brand and our reputation within the games industry. And since then, we've gone through pretty sustained growth and considerable growth, and not just in the UK, but also international territories, which I'll come on to in a second. So today, Sumo is made of 4 core businesses. The first is Atom Hawk Design. So Atom Hawk is a world-class design studio with 2 bases in the UK and a base in Canada, who provide premium art services across the TV, the games, and the film industry. You can see some examples here on the screen of the work that they've done and who they've partnered with. In addition to this, they've done some pretty great work with Marvel on the likes of Guardians of the Galaxy, and developed all of the characters for the Mortal Kombat 11 game as well. We've also got Pipeworks, which is a fantastic games developer in the States, founded in the late 90s, who do a great amount of work on not just their own IP that you can see on the left, but work on big partnerships as well, like the NFL games. And then Secret Mode, which was founded very recently within Sumo as a small publisher, developing and publishing indie games, both for Sumo studios and for external developers, and releasing and publishing fantastic games recently like Little Orpheus and Dear Esther. And of course, who we're here to talk about. So Sumo Digital, we're a games developer with 10 development studios in and across the UK and India. We've got licenses to develop with the likes of PlayStation, Microsoft, Sega, Google and Nintendo platforms, as well as on mobile. And we've got studios now in Newcastle, Warrington. We've got a studio in Leeds with the folks at Red Kite Games. And we've got 290 staff in Sheffield as well, alongside Sumo Nottingham. And then in Leamington, we've got both Sumo Leamington and Lab42, with the Chinese room in Brighton, rounding off the family of studios that we have here in the UK. So this is a bit of an infographic for you on Sumo Group and kind of where we are today. So as I mentioned, we started off the Sheffield studio in 2003. We then opened our second studio in Pune, India, 4 years later in 2007. And we spent a number of years really building a solid business model before expanding further in the UK with the launch of Sumo Nottingham in 2016. From around 2018 onwards, we've been in a really fantastic position to grow very significantly, but again, with that focus on security for our people and sustainability. It started with the acquisition of CCP, which is a great game studio in Newcastle, that then became Sumo Digital Newcastle in 2018. And later that year, we added the Chinese room and Red Kite Games in Leeds to the family. We launched then the Leamington studio and our Warrington studios in 2019. And finally, for this presentation, Lab42, who joined the family earlier in 2021, actually during lockdown, which was challenging, but definitely very, very rewarding for us. So each studio has a particular focus with regards to the games, the platforms, and the skills, and each has a very unique culture to them. All of our studios, however, work across a wide range of development services. We've got own IP, co-development, porting services, and franchise ownership across a huge number of genres. Recently, to name a few, we've worked on racing projects, platformers, sports games, and narrative adventure. And I think the big thing for Sumo is we want to show people we really do have a home for everyone, both from a project perspective, but also from a studio cultural perspective, in the sense that there is somewhere for everybody to fit into. Last year was another huge year for us with the release of games like Forza 5 and Call of Duty Vanguard, but it's actually the big titles in development this year, I think, that are probably most exciting for myself and the team. Our studios are working at the moment on nearly 40 live projects, including quite a few next generation AAA titles. And this really brings us back to Sumo's kind of rich history of title development and our place within the games industry as a whole. We've worked on over 60 released titles since the start of 2004, including games like the Outrun series, Virtua Tennis, Hitman, Sonic Racing and Little Big Planet franchise, and then obviously games like Crackdown 3 and Forza, which have really put us in a fantastic position to kind of take on big AAA franchises today, like the Call of Duty franchise, for example. In addition to the co-development work we've done, however, we're very, very proud to have released some of our own IP. Last year on Apple Arcade, for example, in the shape of Little Orpheus from the awesome team at the Chinese room in Brighton, Hood from the folks at Sumo Newcastle, and Spider, which was actually the result of an internal game jam winning team at Sumo Sheffield. So every now and then I get kind of fortunate enough to reflect on who I work for and kind of who I get to work with. And it's pretty crazy when I think about it and get to share that with people like yourselves. Our Sumo studios have been fortunate enough to attract and develop some of the most incredible talent into senior and leadership roles in the organization, as well as hiring people, behind incredible games franchises and initiatives within the industry. We've got folks like Dan Pinchbeck at the Chinese Room, who was the brains behind Dear Esther and Everybody Gone to the Rapture. We've got the art directors at Sumo Nottingham and the Chinese Room, who between them were pretty much responsible for most of the previous Fable titles. And we've got fantastic female leaders in the games industry, women like Harinder Sanger, who was the driving force behind Sumo Leamington's growth, and behind Sumo Leamington winning the Games Industry Business Development and Diversity Award. I think whatever our heritage as a business, whatever we've worked on, the thing I'm most proud of is that everybody brings themselves to the studio. We're all very much Sumo as a group. We're very secure in our jobs and in the industry that we're in. We're very much all a family unit, and we provide a lot of security to our people, again, while all delivering a very much first-class experience to the players that we have. And these are just some of the awards that we've won from 2020 onwards, some of which we've won again at the start of this year. Particularly proud of the kind of best place to work, best small company winner at Red Kite, for example, and again, the best place to work awards winner at Sumo Leamington. Beyond our games, however, we put a great deal of energy, not just from a recruitment standpoint, but from a learning and development standpoint, into developing fantastic games developers, fantastic publishers, producers, and artists. You might come into the industry as a junior, surrounded by experienced and talented game developers, ready to apply your knowledge and very much soak up the experiences that you come across every single day within the business. And we look at you folks here, not just as our graduates of today, but as the seniors, the leaders, and the directors of tomorrow within the business. Where your career path leads, kind of giving you the space to develop is very much of critical importance to us. We're here to help you develop through the Sumo pathway, grow your career, but also provide you with exciting learning opportunities within the organization as well. It's our job really to clear the runway that gives you the chance to develop and grow and develop a real secure, rewarding career. With that, as you can imagine, come a whole host of benefits within the organization, all of which are pretty much under constant review. There's a few here that you can see on the screen. A lot of this is going to be improved upon this year. So what you can see here will be even better if you join us next year. And it's something that's going to continue developing as the business continues to grow and scale. As well as a wide range of pretty fantastic benefits, all of the people at Sumo are given 5 learning days, in addition to holiday allowance, which you can spend developing yourself either on some of the 4,000 Udemy courses that we have available to us, or through the 12,000 presentations that we have available through the GDC Vault, the videos and tutorials on the Gnomon workshop, or any other tutorials and learning that you want to focus on, really to hone your skills and level up, which for us is a huge focus as a business. And I want to hand over now to Craig, who's going to give you some tips and advice.
Cool. All right. Thanks for that, Jack. Right, as Jack said, I'm Craig. I'm in the recruitment team here at Sumo. I tend to look after code and programming recruitment for a couple of our studios, including Red Kite in Leeds and Chinese Ring down in Brighton, along with some of the others. I've been in recruitment for about 6.5 years now. Only a couple of months here at Sumo, but in terms of trying to break into any industry, it's a bit different from a lot of the others, but there's some certain things that you can do which we will specifically look for. You have to imagine how many graduates come out of university every single year up and down the country in all the different unis that do different games kind of courses. So what we want to see is more than just coursework, really. Also want to stress as well, you don't specifically need a degree to get into video games, but it does help, and it also gives you the grounding. So in terms of more than just coursework, you know, what can you do outside of your course? Is there personal projects you can take on? Yes, obviously your course is going to teach you how to do certain things, but we want to see you sort of build on that in your own time as well. What that tells us is a little bit more passion, somebody who really wants it, as opposed to somebody who's just getting a piece of paper to say that they've studied it. If you work outside your course as well, build a portfolio. First thing any recruiter in any game studio is going to want to see is an extensive portfolio or show reel of what you can do and what you can demonstrate for us. If it's code, we kind of like things like GitHub. Obviously, do your own website. Personal websites are always good. If it's art, obviously you can build a show reel. You can do like a kind of video, anything like that. Showing initiative. You know, again, building something which you may not cover on a university course. If you're just hypothetically, you may be looking at vehicles or vehicle art or how to program a vehicle at college or at uni. So in your own time, try and develop something else. You know, try and develop that piece of art or that piece of programming that's going to work similar, but in a different context. Different pathways as well. What kind of style are you going to be going for? We want you to kind of sort of branch out, but also be specific. That's an absolute worst thing to say, but yeah, find something you're good at. Find something not only that you're good at, but something you're very interested in, and stick with it. Also, we want to see you work to a brief. It's not just coming, if you're doing art, it's not just coming and do us whatever you can draw. If it's programming, it's not just showing your skills. Think of a job, think of a reason of why am I doing this? What is it I'm trying to create, and what is the reason behind it? So you may find a brief, you may even try and pick up some work experience with a local business. Doesn't have to be games, but if it's art, you know, design, something like that. I knew one guy who went to his local CAF and built a ball breaker type game to give out on CD. So it's like he had a brief, he had to advertise this cafe, so he made a video game which was very, very simple. They could give it out with extra meals, just a bit of promotion. So it's working to an idea, because if you're working at a video games company, you're going to have a brief. There's going to be a project, there's going to be guidelines, there's going to be an A to B. How do we get there? So think about that as well. Okay, Jack, we can move on. Right, pathways. Again, be specific in what you want to do. We've had a lot of interviews, graduate interviews recently, and some of the feedback I get from some of the studios is they're great. They seem to know what they're doing, but they don't seem to know what they want. So it could be somebody who's maybe done a little bit of graphics programming, done a bit of gameplay, done a bit of audio, but they're not specializing in anything. If we have a seat to fill, then we're going to want to fill that seat with somebody who specializes in that area. Can be any of those that I've kind of mentioned on there. So low level, which is like your sort of networking or your systems. It could be graphics, gameplay, audio, engine, technical tools. And the same goes for different areas as well. It's not just code. Same with art. You know, concept, you've got obviously a lot of different pathways within there. Is it concept art for characters? Is it the concept for the environment? Is it the concept for vehicles? We've got 3D, 2D character, props, visual effects, and environment. It's don't be a jack of all trades. Don't be, I can do this, and absolutely everything. What we want to see is something targeted. You know, if we can see that you've really got that passion and really got that drive in that direction, it's going to help us find an area for you to go. And as Jack mentioned in his part of the talk earlier, with all the studios we've got, somewhere there tends to be a home for everyone. So if you're a visual effects artist and at that moment in time you're applying, Red Kite Games doesn't have a desk for visual effects, chances are somewhere in the business is gonna have a need for it. The same with designers. I know we talk a lot about code, we talk a lot about art, but there's obviously the designers and the producers amongst you as well. Same thing, try and figure out what area you want to specialize in, and that's where you want to be practicing outside of your university work. That's where you want to be putting in the extra hours to really hone your own skills. Okay, Jack, if we can move on. Actually, what I will do very, very quickly, talking about those pathways, is talk about what we tend to use. The majority of our studios work in C++. Sometimes that's in Unreal 4. Sometimes it's in proprietary engines. A lot of our 3D art is done in Maya or Blender. If you specifically want to work for Sumo, that's what I recommend you use as your tools. But every game studio uses something different. So you may want to do a little bit of research and figure out what it is you want to pick up to take to different studios. Okay, so networking. This is the important bit for you guys. Again, as mentioned earlier, how many people graduate every year? How do we find you, or how do you find us? This is where networking comes in. I know how easy it is for you to sit in your room doing programming, or sit in your room doing your own artwork. Nobody's ever going to see that. Okay, we need to get it in front of us somehow. So meeting people, you need to meet people. People need to know who you are. You need to get your name out there. So how do we do that? There's a lot of events that kind of go on. I know it's not always easy to get to the big conferences, you know, the develops and the places like that. It's a little bit out of your reach a lot of the time. But if there's local events, I know in places like Yorkshire, where we are, we have things like Game Republic often put on events that people can attend. There's a smaller group called Gamer.io as well, which kind of works online. You know, you can find a lot of forums. You can find like a lot of kind of groups on things like sort of Reddit or LinkedIn, where you can get involved. You can start talking to people. The more you get your name out there, the more likely it is that you're going to meet somebody who can either help you out or who's in a position to be able to help you. If there's not an event in your local area, you know, if there's not a sort of specific games group for indie developers or people just trying to break into the business, why don't you start one? You know, start a local group. I'm sure there's plenty of you on your courses that work together. Get together, build a little group, and it expands out from there. You know, you sort of that's how you're going to meet people. That's how you're going to kind of get people noticing you. Talk to the studios. I'm more than aware I'm probably going to get 101 messages on LinkedIn following this, but do find us on LinkedIn. You know, find us on Twitter, find us on the socials if you need to. Make an introduction. Don't go straight in for the kill. Never just message somebody and say, I want a job, can you help me? You know, build a relationship, let people know what it is that you're doing. If you're a few months off graduating, say, look, okay, I'm a few months off, so I'm not ready for a job yet. Ask me questions. Say, what else should I be doing? What can I do? How can I be in touch when the time is right? Do you know if there's any sort of graduate jobs coming up? Ask questions, build a relationship, because that's important. I'm going to remember somebody who's tried to build a relationship with me. I'm not going to remember somebody who just hits me up out of the blue and says, have you got a job? Find out who's who. Like I said, I'm Craig, part of the recruitment team at Sumo, but target the studios that you want to go to as well. I'm not going to list off everybody else because obviously we want you first. But again, programs like LinkedIn, other social media, find people on there. You know, find out who it is that you're going to be approaching for certain studios. Find out who it is that you need to approach for certain kind of teams or areas, and reach out. You know, like I said, if all you're doing is practicing your code or practicing your art or practicing your design at home, we're not going to find you. Come and find us. Okay. And remember, key thing in that is have the portfolio ready. One of the things that I picked up from the guys here at Sumo is your weakest piece of work will be judged. So if you send me a portfolio with 10 pieces of work on it, and the first one that I open is the weakest, that's what you can get judged on. So if you've got something in there that you're unsure on, that you're not quite sure if you want to put it out into the wider world, just have a little think to yourself, is this going to get me through? Because if it's of a slightly lower quality and it doesn't get through, you know, that, as horrible as it sounds, maybe your chance. So only pick the very best pieces that you have to show us, and that's how we're going to remember you. We're going to remember you by the quality work, if that's all we see. Okay, yeah, Jack, we can move on. Right, build a team. This one, again, it's not for everybody. A lot of the ways people get noticed is by building the game. You know, it's real world experience. Like I've said a dozen times, it's not just your university coursework. If you can show us a working game that you and a team, whether it's a bunch of mates or a bunch of people that you've met on the networking that we just spoke about, if you've put a game together, you know, that really shows us what you're capable of. That shows us that you're capable of working in an actual real world environment. You may be a single programmer, you may have a friend who's an artist, you may have a friend who's a designer. Get together, do it yourself, you know, build something from nothing. If you can come to us and say, look what we've done, it doesn't just show that you're capable of the actual job title you're after, but it shows us you're capable of working in the team. It shows us you're capable of working to a brief. It's everything that we need all wrapped up in one. You know, there's game jams out there which you can get involved with. Nobody's expecting you to sort of come away with a deal or to win anything, but again, it just shows us that you've got that capability of actually working together. The last one I've got on there is starting a company. And again, I know this isn't for everybody, but as Jack mentioned, you know, some of the studios that we have attached to us, you know, they started from somewhere. Red Kite, they started up, they were all ex-Rockstar developers, and they got together, started up their own company, started it from scratch. They made it happen, and then, you know, 10 years later, Sumo come along and say, you know, we'll take you on. Same with Atom Hawk. I'm not quite sure what their background was before Atom Hawk, but they weren't always part of Sumo. Originally, they were just a standalone art studio. Sumo really liked what they do. They got brought on. You know, it can happen. It's difficult. I understand money is a key factor in there. There should be some kind of sort of funding available through sort of government schemes, whether it's grants or funding. I'd be straight up honest, haven't done my research on it at the moment, but I know years ago it was quite a sort of common thing. People get off the ground, and again, you build up a portfolio. It shows us what you're capable of, especially if there's any of you. I've mentioned the coders, I've mentioned the artists, I've mentioned designers. If you want to get into production, game producers, that's very, very difficult to show us what you can do with a portfolio, because you can only produce a game if you've produced a team. You know, so that is a very good way to do it. It's like, look, if I've built this team from scratch, or I've managed these group of guys to make our own game to go into a game jam, that's where the producers are going to shine through. So it's all stuff worth doing. It's all portfolio building, and you never know, if you strike it lucky, we'll take somebody on simply by seeing what you've done in your own time. Okay, that's pretty much everything I wanted to cover. Do find us on LinkedIn. It's a good way to practice sort of searching people out for networking as well. If you find Sumo Digital on LinkedIn, there's a button on there where you click staff or employees, type in recruitment, and my name will come up, Jack's name will come up, a load of other team members will come up. And if you do that for whoever it is you want to target, that's the way to find us. So I expect a lot of connection requests over the next week.
Cool. Thanks, Greg. So yeah, I think the kind of parting message from us is we hope your studies are going well. We really do hope that the awesome work Confetti does with you guys, I guess, as well as the input you're getting from the industry, is helpful. We just want to see you guys keep developing, keep learning, you know, stay curious. And yeah, like Craig says, hopefully we see some of you very soon. So we're open to any questions that you might have.
Cool. Okay, just opening up the questions now. The first one from Mr. Anonymous, asking about QA. Okay, so
I don't need to be on camera.
I always thought with the QA jobs, they were very, very entry level, and it was if somebody wanted to get into games, then QA was a good way to get in. But since coming to Sumo, we like people to have a little bit more focus on QA and a little bit more experience. So Jack, do you want to sort of take over and say what it is we look for with that?
Yeah, I think it's very much studio dependent. So say, for example, Secret Mode, we've just hired a few folks at Secret Mode because they're a very, very small organization at the moment. They need people who, probably already have experience in the QA realm. They've got some development experience. And again, kind of want to get their first foot in the door in the industry, I think is the best way to look at those kind of more junior QA positions. Not everybody sticks with QA forever. A lot of people start off in QA and then move into gameplay development, for example, or kind of back-end programming. I think if you're wanting to get into QA, at a bigger Sumo studio or just a bigger studio in general, then having good core kind of programming ability and the ability to show that you've got a good eye for detail is the most important thing. You might not necessarily have, solid QA experience or any QA experience, but if you've got some kind of groundwork coding experience that you can demonstrate, whether that's on GitHub or whether it's on Stack Overflow, if you can demonstrate on there that, your code works, you've tested it, it's portable or it's runs smoothly, for example, then most hiring managers will definitely be happy to have a chat with you for a junior QA position. I think that's the next question as well, isn't it? What would you require for a QA tester? So it's a similar thing. A lot of our QA testers who kind of come into the position at an entry level, they have just shown really good attention to detail and an eye for kind of code quality. And again, they've done that through having GitHub or Stack Overflow, or they might have done kind of a mock QA role as part of a university project. And they've got the ability to demonstrate that either through their CVs or, as Craig mentioned, through GitHub or Stack Overflow or a portfolio, for example.
Cool. Okay, so next question as well from another anonymous. I've been told that people automatically disregard applicants that don't have uni degrees as there are too many applicants to properly look through. Is this true? And is having a degree beneficial to getting a job? I've got two answers for that one. First one is a straight up, it is beneficial because it shows us that you've already got that kind of sort of, number one, it's an understanding of what's required. It's an understanding of the industry itself a little bit. And we know that if you're capable enough to get a degree, we know you can see a project through. Because 3 years of a degree is quite something. But in terms of, do you automatically get disregarded? No, you don't. This morning, I can't give out too many details for GDPR, but this morning I did have a candidate who had a completely unrelated degree to video games, but has done loads of Unreal Engine 4 work in their spare time. It's their passion to make an RPG, and all the examples he sent us in a showreel and portfolio. There's about 3 different games that they're produced in their own time on Unreal, and it was exactly what we were looking for, and they got taken to interview straight away. So if there's no degree, we want to see that portfolio, we want to see that showreel. Even if you've got 2 people, one's got a degree and one doesn't, and the show reels are exactly the same, both really high quality, they're both going to get taken to interview. Some cases we'll have somebody with a degree and a very poor portfolio or show reel, and we'll have somebody without the degree who's got a brilliant one. Then the brilliant portfolio is going to get the interview over the degree. They are helpful. It's like I said, they show us you already have that understanding, that grounding of the basics, what's needed, and we do recommend people go through uni. For us, we have some of our teams who will interview people off the back of they've graduated from certain universities that have got a great track record of supplying us with stuff. So there's 101 kind of answers to that. Sometimes it's beneficial, but it's absolutely not needed. As well, going off on a bit of a tangent, it's my second time round in video games industry. Years ago, in a different world, I used to run an audio design company, and my university degree opened the door to that. So I finished uni with games design and digital music, couldn't get a job because everybody was like, you need the experience to get the job. You can't get the job without the experience. So I set up on my own. And but it was my degree that allowed me to get the funding. It was my degree that gave me the kind of know-how of how to do what it was that I needed to do. So even though the degree itself didn't get me the job, it opened up the doors that led to it. So it's, you know, it's different answers there, but yeah, we certainly look for it.
Okay. Cool. Do you want to take the next one as well, Craig? Because I'm going to take the one after.
Yeah, okay, right. Michael asks, especially in the case of Sumo and having all of your studios, is it best to apply for each studio individually, or do applications get passed on to others if they may be better suited there? Yeah, what I would recommend is if you see a job that you're interested in, apply for it. We have different departments. Obviously, like I said, on code, we have other recruiters just look for art. We have other recruiters just look for production producers. On my side of things, if I have a candidate who looks good, then once a week I will take that candidate to all of our studios, all of the technical directors who look after the code and programming side of things. I will take that candidate to all of them at once. So it may well be a case of you're unaware that Sumo Leamington are hiring and you've applied for Sheffield, but we will get your details in front of Leamington as well, and vice versa, and everywhere else. Obviously, the more you apply, the more your name's going to flag up, but you only need to apply once. And if we see something in your application that is strong enough to be put in front of everybody, then it will be.
Cool. The next question is a great one. And the question is very much along the lines of, you know, your studies are important to you, so you put a huge amount of time and effort into the projects and kind of portfolio work that come along with the course, but you don't have a huge amount of kind of personal or additional projects because a lot of your time goes into the university projects. Are your prospects still good? I would say yes. However, it very much depends on the studio and the discipline that you're applying for. In code, for example, you know, a lot of the sort of technical directors and a lot of the lead principal programmers appreciate that the projects you're working on as part of your course can take a significant amount of time. And so they would expect that to be, you know, the majority of your portfolio. They would expect, you know, to see some of that on GitHub perhaps, or, you know, platforms like Stack Overflow, and that because you focus predominantly on that, it's of a very, very high standard. You know, it runs well. It's a kind of high quality code base that you're able to demonstrate. Within the art discipline, the answer is a little bit more complex. Some art directors will be more than happy for your coursework to kind of form the whole part of your portfolio. Again, because it's work that, you know, some of your peers may be doing a very similar thing, again, because it's part of the coursework, you want to stand out from the crowd. And part of that is making sure that the art pieces you're putting together, if it's technical art, you know, that you're using, you know, the right procedures, you're using the right shaders, for example. Maybe you've got experience in, you know, photogrammetry or kind of PBR materials and texturing, making sure that your work is as high of a quality as possible within your coursework so that it does stand out from your peers is incredibly important if that is the bulk of your portfolio. I would say it's never going to hurt to have additional pieces. But like Craig said, you know, if you don't have time to make those pieces the same quality as the rest of your portfolio, then don't do them and don't worry about it, because that will actually bring down the overall quality of the work that you're submitting. Your prospects are still very, very good if you submit to us a portfolio that is predominantly university or coursework projects, as opposed to just stuff that you've put together quickly because you're concerned you don't have enough diversity. So yeah, I would definitely still say that your prospects are very good.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, if I could just add to that one, again, at the beginning of my other things, I mentioned if we look at the amount of people who are graduating, how do you stand out? So yeah, university work on its own is fine. If you think, you know, if you think there's something in there that you've done to make it stand out, then yeah, by all means, it should be enough. Cool. Right.
Do you want to take the next one?
Okay, Jay asks, I see you guys are currently hiring sound designers. Is there any space on the team for junior sound designers? Also, do you think it's worth applying for full sound design jobs straight out of uni? I haven't looked at sound design since starting at Sumo, so I don't know the kind of absolute ins and outs of what we've currently got live on that, to be fair.
We can find out. We can find out for you, Jay. If you want to drop one of us a message, we'd be more than happy to come back to you on that on LinkedIn or via email separately. More than happy to have that chat with you. I think the bigger studios tend to have more space for junior sound designers, simply because they've got the ability to provide mentoring and kind of development space for you to learn and grow. Some of the smaller studios, the likes of Lab 42, for example, or Red Kite Games, would probably need someone who had the industry experience, just because they don't necessarily have the headcount to provide all of the kind of learning and training in a small audio team that you might need. The kind of second part of your question around applying for full sound designer positions straight out of uni, it depends on how confident you are with the skill set that you've got. I think it's very much a case by case basis. If you feel like you've done enough as part of the course or enough in your own time, for example, to kind of bolster your portfolio there, then I'd say go for it, because even if you're not right for that position, it gets your CV in front of the hiring manager a lot quicker than it would be to wait, 3 to 6 months for a junior position to come up potentially. And again, we always provide feedback to any candidates who, might not be suitable now, but could be suitable in 6 months' time. And I think that feedback can be very beneficial as well. So yeah, if you want to drop one of us a message separately, Jay, we're more than happy to look into that for you.
Yeah. And as well, I would say sound design and audio design is probably one of the easier ones to be able to build your own portfolio with. You can rip videos from YouTube and kind of do what you want with them in terms of adding your own audio. Like I mentioned just now, being there myself, coming out of uni with music for games degree, so I know how difficult it is. But yeah, in terms of being able to build that portfolio, that's the one that you can really get quality and do it quick as well. Cool. Right, who's next?
Toby. Do you want me to take the next one?
Toby Sims is about code. I know code.
Go for it.
Okay, right. With coding, you mentioned that Sumo is doing a mixture of C++ and Unreal C++. What would the engines that Sumo use have visual blueprints or be pure C++? Right. A lot of it is pure. It's a bit of both. The studio that uses Unreal the most is probably down in Brighton, probably the Chinese rooms, and they do use a few blueprints from time to time, and they will interview candidates who have worked off of blueprints. But the pure C++, actually sort of creating a bit more from scratch is preferred. Just because if the project changes or once that project finishes and you go on to the next one, we may not be using those blueprints again. So it's a bit of both. If you use blueprints, that's great, but we would want to see something else, something a bit more.
Cool. Just to add to that one, I guess. Again, it depends on the level of position. If you're wanting to come in as more of a junior or kind of graduate level position, then as long as you've got the C++ experience and you've got UE4 experience, whether it's pure C++ or whether it is the kind of frameworks or the blueprints you're working with For grad positions, the studio directors and the TDs are happy to consider people for those roles. The only time that would be a major concern, not having pure C++, is if you were applying for more of a kind of senior position. Cool. Next question is, so with the mention of a mock QA thing as experience, I did one of those with one of your employees yesterday. So could I use that for example? Yeah, 100%. Use everything as an example, I think is the best advice I could give. If you've got experience, mention it. Whether it's something that you've done, in the space of one day with someone from the industry like you did yesterday, or whether it's stuff you've done in your own time as part of a project, I would 100% mention that on your CV, because any indicators you can give to us that you're passionate, it's not just about having the skills, it's about being able to demonstrate the passion that you have for that particular area and the genuine interest that you have. So I think if you're able to show that on your CV or in the portfolio of work that you've done, then it's something that I would definitely recommend mentioning.
Cool. Okay, next one. Robin Lauder. Finishing my degree in May. If I was to apply and not get the role, would you guys, where has it gone? Will you still be happy to give candidates some useful feedback for the future if they were not successful? Yeah, we try to. We try to give feedback where we can. If you got to interview stage, then 100% you get feedback. I hate saying it, but sometimes the sheer volume of applications we get in, occasionally some people do slip through without getting feedback if it's kind of sort of early stages. If you're finishing in May and you didn't get through, then I can guarantee the feedback is going to be, build that portfolio. We need to see a bit from you. That's kind of 9 out of 10 times that a graduate, if they don't get the role, that's the feedback they're going to get. Unless you're absolutely rude and difficult to talk to in the interview itself, but we don't expect that to happen very often at all. But yeah, we try and be useful. We try and give feedback where we can. We try and make it constructive. At the very least, again, one thing I've learned in recruitment is don't upset anybody, because 5 years down the line, you don't know where they're going to be. If we gave you a bad candidate experience and then you go work for Rockstar for 10 years and we want you to join us after that, if you remember us as not being nice, then you're not going to want to come here. So yeah, we always try to be helpful.
Yeah, the thing I would add to that is a lot of our smaller studios for graduate applicants, we tend to give personalized feedback. So we can't always do that. Like Craig said, I think we get a ton of graduate applicants. The one thing that I'm always happy to do, and I know the team's always happy to do, is if you want specific feedback, send us an email, drop us a message on LinkedIn. We'll make sure you get that. We want to make sure that, whether it's Atom Hawk or whether it's Sumo Sheffield or Secret Mode, if you guys do get turned away that first time, we don't want you to stop being interested in working for us, because it doesn't mean we're not interested in you. It just means that now is not perhaps the right time. And we'll always try and make sure that you're kind of aware of why that is, and areas for development, like Craig says, that could help you get a job here in the future.
Yeah, and again, just quickly with Robin, again, if you've applied and maybe it's been a week and you haven't heard anything, go back to what I was saying about networking. Get in touch with us, get me on LinkedIn or something like that, and say, look, you've got my application. What do you think? And even if it has to be constructive feedback, we'll always engage. We'll always engage with you. We'll always have a chat.
Yeah, 100%. So the next question is, how many stages of interview do you have before choosing the successful candidate? To be honest, Joseph, it's very, very heavily dependent on the position and the studio. So I can say from my perspective, if you apply for a producer position, for example, again, if it's a kind of associate level producer, you would typically have an interview with one of the leads or one of the executive producers within that studio. If that goes well, then the second interview would typically be with someone or two people from their production team. And then if that goes well, you'll then have a final interview again with the EP or somebody who leads one of the other disciplines, obviously something like production being cross-disciplinary, for example. So for a junior role, you can tend to, look at maybe 3 interviews in production. But again, that's studio dependent and it's discipline dependent. So recently we've hired 3 or 4 people into the Newcastle studio in graduate program of positions, and all of them had 1 interview. And following the first interview, we made the decision that we wanted to hire them. So again, and we're very transparent from day one. If we think the interview process is going to need to run slightly longer, we'll tell you that from the first conversation. But again, for these kind of entry level or kind of mid-level positions, they tend to be shorter interview processes than you potentially expect.
And one of our studios has a pub chat as well, where your final stage, I invite you out for a drink. That's always fun.
I think the next one's from your stuff as well, actually. So yeah, is there any relocation support for new starters? Yes, there is. So there's a lot of caveats around that, yes, unfortunately. It's dependent on the type of relocation support you need, the type of, if you need a visa, for example, or any kind of legal permit for the job that you're applying for. There's obviously the government guidance around kind of what businesses can and can't sponsor. We're happy to answer all of those questions more specifically on a kind of case-by-case basis, essentially. The reason for that is that some of the caveats are very, very specific. What I would say is we tend to not offer relocation support in the UK. So if someone's already in the UK and they're applying for a position, we tend to not offer specified relocation support. There are exceptions to that. If the person, for example, couldn't take a job with us unless we did provide some support, then there's a conversation to be had there around, if we want to hire them, what we're able to do to kind of make life more comfortable for them. And it's the same thing for visa and relocation. If you need sponsorship to work in the UK, or if you're on a settled status, for example, or you need a visa transferring, it's an individual conversation that we have with yourself and the studio that you're going to be working with, just to make sure we can provide you all of the support possible. While kind of not being too restrained by some of the legal restrictions in place.
Cool. Okay. Any news? We're moving on. Yeah. Right. Okay. So any news on if and when graduate roles may come up for junior roles for things like QA? We've got a couple of QA tester roles open at the moment, but again, I don't know what sort of level they take, if it's straight from graduate. Jack, do we?
It depends on the studio, to be honest. I'd say if the anonymous person has specific questions on that, I'm happy to field them on LinkedIn. Alternatively, we've got a really great QA recruiter in the team called Polly Odd. So feel free to connect with Polly on LinkedIn as well. If there are specific positions you see advertised on our careers website, Polly will be happy to chat through all of them with you. What I would say is probably over the next 3-4 months, you will start seeing more kind of QA tester and junior QA positions pop up. I can't specify the studios at this stage, but some of our studios that are going through kind of early stage growth will be looking for more of those junior QA tester positions very soon.
Okay, and should I start applying for jobs before I graduate? Easy answer to that one is yes. Just in the last couple of weeks, we have hired sort of graduates with the idea of, look, you've got the job, finish your course and come join us at the end of May or start of June, whenever it's convenient for you. So yeah, like I said, most important thing is make sure you've got your portfolio together. And then we will sort of look at it and we will go, okay, this person is graduating in a few months. If we have space for them, let's get it set up. So yeah, it's never too early unless you're not ready. So yeah, hit the apply button.
Do you want to take the next one, Craig, and then I'll take the last one from Toby?
Okay, so if there are no graduate junior jobs available, should we still apply for standard level job roles? Yeah, do, because sometimes we have some of our studio leads or some of the technical directors may not have given the green light to hire a graduate for a certain project. But if we have an excellent application come in, or an excellent sort of CV portfolio land on our desk from a graduate, then again we will take it to them and say, look, how about this person? The only danger is if you only see a senior level come in, it may flag up immediately as this person is not senior. But if we're all doing our jobs right, then we'll go through it with a fine tooth comb and put it in the right direction anyway. So yeah, even if you don't see it, apply for it.
Cool. And the last two questions. So this one from Toby: would Sumo be doing any graduation or internship schemes anytime in the next year or two? Yeah, 100%. So we advertise every year for placement positions. We're fairly flexible on how long those placements can last. The same studios don't advertise the same placements every year. It's very much dependent on if they've got the capacity to give you guys the time that you need to kind of learn and develop within the placement. And the reason for that is a lot of other businesses, not just in games but in tech, etc., will take on interns and take on placement students and then actually not really give them anything of value. They'll have you guys making coffee or kind of doing the odd errand run here and there. We want to avoid that as much as possible. So I'd say keep an eye on our careers page, and anytime you see a placement opportunity come up or a graduate position come up, apply for them straight away, because we get a ton of applicants for those very, very quickly. And you want to be close to the top of the list for that, so that we can consider you as quickly as possible. And the last question: so I'm a bit of an older student. Do you think it's difficult when applying to jobs to get noticed more being a bit older, or do you think differently if they are a bit older? Great question, because I think a lot of people worry about that sort of thing. The honest answer to that, all I was going to say was the honest answer to that is no. So age doesn't come into it for us. We don't care if you're someone who is, your standard student graduating at 21, 22, or someone who's a mature student, graduating much later in life in their 40s, 50s, 60s. It really doesn't bother us. The most important thing is that we can see you're passionate, you genuinely care and want to work at Sumo, you've got a love for the games industry as a whole, and that you've put time and dedication into building your skill set. If we can see those things, then your age doesn't matter to us in the slightest. And I think, Craig, you were probably going to say something similar.
Yeah, I was just going to say I'm the second oldest on the recruitment team, and I thought I was like a bit old to come into it, but no, not at all. What I would say is, whether you graduate when you're 21 or whether you graduate when you're 43, it doesn't make a difference. The only thing I'd be careful of, if you graduate in 2022 and then you're applying for a graduate position 4 years down the line, we're going to ask, well, what have you been doing in that time? But no, as long as you're, applying for a graduate role around, up to like a year or so from graduating, then you're still a graduate, and there's nothing else that comes into it.
Yeah, perfectly put. I think those are all the questions. So yeah, unless anyone has anything else to add, thank you guys. I hope that's been valuable for you. And like I say, we really, really do hope some of you get in touch. And yeah, fingers crossed we get the chance to work together soon.
Thank you very much, Sumo. That's really, really good. Jack and Craig, you've been absolute stars. Loads and loads of questions asked there as well from the students. There's really good information for everybody there, and I think it's weird when we do these online things because there's normally like a round of applause now, but it's just silent. But the chat will be going mad with people saying thank you, I'm sure. And clapping sort of type things, which is just a bit surreal still. So I'm sure both Jack and Craig are happy for you to tap them up on LinkedIn and things like that and send them messages and things. And obviously the main thing from my point of view, is get applying. You know, if you see the jobs come up on the Sumo website, get applying for those jobs. There's some really great opportunities for everybody, really, and you know, you're not going to get the opportunity unless you apply for the jobs, really. So make sure you get your portfolios sorted out and use your time in university and college to create a great portfolio. Thanks again to Jack and Craig for taking part today. It's been really insightful. Remember, there are plenty of other industry week events coming up. We've got the Games Expo tomorrow, which everybody's invited to. That will be a fun event, and lots of participation stuff going on there. You don't have to stay for the whole day. Just drop in, spend a couple of hours, soak up the atmosphere and play some games. That's not too difficult to do, I don't think. Also, another thing just to flag, if you're a HE student in the chat at the moment, we do have some playtesting opportunities with Sumo coming up as well. So if you talk to your course leaders about that, there will be some playtesting opportunities coming up with Sumo in the next few weeks. So that's another thing to put on your CV. Again, I think it's useful to put things like that on your CV. And also, if you're involved in the Games Jam today, that's another thing that you could put on your CV and put down as part of your experience as well. There's some good Game Jam stuff going on today and tomorrow. So thanks again, everybody. If you guys could just stay online just to talk to me afterwards, that would be great. But all the students, if you could leave as quickly and as swiftly as possible, that would be amazing. Thank you very much.